I just feel like I've been around the block, ripping up fantasy stock, working around the clock. Look at the view from the top. Researching rookies a lot? No, I just be listening to pods. Yeah, one in particular, I'm just a messenger. Let me just pass on the rock. Browning, brunning, pruning, pronouncing ain't what he's doing. What he's doing is not losing, but infusing you with new things. And there's Dennis the Bennett, yeah. The man is a menace, yeah. Building a dynasty, some of the finest things. Promise you, you won't regret it. Sly as a fox, cultured in pop. Give him his props. Here is a thought, here is a box. And you cannot compare them at all, so don't even try. Careful with the news, but when you use a take, I take up Tony Fire, I mean Dyer, because anyone else is a huge mistake. Whoa, fantasy round table, fantasy round table, yeah. Fantasy round table, come take a look at the crown, baby. Hey, fantasy round table, fantasy round table, woo. Fantasy round table, come take a look at the crown, baby. Go.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Fantasy Football Roundtable Podcast. We are continuing to move through our redraft rankings. I'll be looking at our top running backs today. But in addition to that, the NFL gives a lot of news this time of year. It has been a rich week for news, which we will dive into first. But Dennis, are you excited about the final week of preseason?
I'm mostly excited because the final week of preseason means we're that much closer to the regular season. And I'm just like, there's so many. I was watching, I forget which game it was last. I think it might have been Atlanta and Philadelphia. Did they play yesterday? Maybe
yes,
not.
They did play yesterday.
So it's like one team has like all their starters starting and the other one doesn't start any of their starters. And it's like, I get it. You don't want to get players injured. There's just you got to play the games because you have to get people the experience, and you want to make sure you're ready to go for the season. But it's just it gets mundane. You're trying to read so much into it about what's going on. And I love football, and I'm glad it's back.
Yeah, well, Dennis, you don't have to play in the preseason game to get injured. As the Broncos found out, it has been a horror show at wide receiver the last 2 years, and that continued this off season in camp as Jerry Jeudy pulled up lame on, I think it was yesterday, so Thursday, saying a hamstring injury, saying he's going to be out a couple of weeks, kind of giving you that nebulous timeline. What does it mean for fantasy and for the Broncos?
We saw Cincinnati last year with Jamar Chase. He got banged up, and they were like, "Look, we're going to take an extra week. We know you want to be back. Let's just." And I think teams with the money they're spending on players, especially early in the season, I think they're going to take that extra time. Jeudy, I think, is probably going to be out till maybe week 3. Hopefully, he gets back. It's a hamstring injury, and those can linger. I want him to do well, even though I'm a Cortland Sutton guy. I got several shares of Russell Wilson and Javonte Williams, and so I'm invested in the Broncos having a high-powered offense, and Jerry Jeudy definitely helps that. So they'll take their time. They'll get him ready. He's gonna he may miss a couple games, but the hardest part is they lost Tim Patrick. So we're looking at Kendall Hinton now. KJ Hamler's gone. Be Marvin Mims. I forget who. They've got a couple other guys. I'm sure you're on first name basis with them as a Broncos fan.
Well, that's really the problem. I mean, with Patrick gone, I love the people flashing the graphic about Denver having like the most expensive wide receiver room in the league. Yeah, well, part of that's Tim Patrick, who's not there, and part of that's Jerry Jeudy. I love people just blaming that all on Cortland Sutton. At least he's actually healthy to this point in time. But beyond that, they were actually getting, it started out as a strength, but they were getting thin. Jalen Virgil, who looked really good as a second-year player, tore his meniscus in the second preseason game and is gone. Brandon Johnson, who had looked really good in camp, has been injured and hasn't been available. So really it's behind Sutton right now. It's Mims, Marquez Callaway, They may end up
Talk
keeping
about fantasy
Hinton.
zombies.
They may end up keeping 7 wide receivers just because I don't think they'll have to carry Jerry Judy in, and they probably won't want to put him on PUP because that guarantees he's out at least 6 weeks. So it's going to be interesting. Who this might actually be the best for is Greg Dulcich, because I could see them now really being forced into more 2 tight end sets. It's also, even though he only played 15 snaps, Javonte Williams saw the most targets of any Bronco in the second week of preseason. So they may be wanting to throw more to backs. But yeah, the receiver room used to be a strength. Now it's looking a little dicey. I'll be curious. They're supposed to play their starters like a half on Saturday night. Be curious to see what it looks like. The other kind of big pieces of news, Sam Darnold got declared QB2 in San Francisco, and in a corresponding move this afternoon, the 49ers traded Trey Lance to the Dallas Cowboys for a 4th-round pick, where he goes from being a 3rd-string quarterback in San Francisco to a 3rd-string quarterback in Dallas. So, Dennis, how does that move hit you?
Lance needs to go somewhere where he gets an opportunity to develop. I don't know if Dallas is that place. Dak is going to get first-team reps. Cooper Rush showed that he was a very, very competent backup. The question is, would I rather
they just re-signed?
Yeah, but we know Cooper Rush has a pretty low ceiling. And I suppose at this point we could say that same thing about Trey Lance. But Lance does have some physical gifts that Cooper Rush doesn't have. Will he be able to put it together under Mike McCarthy? He's got this is his 3rd year now. So they have to make a decision on if they're going to pick up his 4th-year option here after this season. If I'm the Cowboys, I'm picking it up. Dak's, he's going to be on the north side of 30, and it's somebody's got to give him a shot and see if he develops. And we saw what happened with Geno Smith. So if he sits for 3 or 4 more years behind Dak, and at 27 or 28 gets a shot to be a starter, maybe he does have a Geno Smith type of comeback. But he was so snake bit by the injury bug that he just could never get off the ground in San Francisco, and it was kind of a shame. But I get it with San Francisco. It's like, well, you're injured. We got to play somebody. Hey, this dude is playing really, really well. And so they're going with Garoppolo. They're going with Purdy. They're going with, Nick Mullins looked serviceable when Lance was out. So I get the thought process. And, when you remember college and the economic concept of the sunk cost fallacy, I at some point you got to just cut your losses. Yeah, we moved heaven and earth, gave up a bunch of picks to get up there and get him, but we think we got our guy, and we think that we've got our number 2, and we don't think we're doing this guy any justice. We're just not going to develop him. Darnold is a veteran, and he may not be the guy they want to put in there and start for 16 games. But Darnold is a guy that's, I think he may be entering that career backup phase of his NFL career. And we'll see what happens. He seems like a guy that you can get something out of. But Lance, he nobody, I don't think there's anybody in the NFL that needed to change the scenery more than Trey Lance.
Yeah, and I thought he was going to get traded, but there were so many other places where he could have gone, even where he would be the primary backup. I don't know.
But he's not ready to be the primary backup. San Francisco didn't get him ready. Whether it's because he's not good enough or they're just not good at developing quarterbacks. There's something to be said for Brock Purdy starting for 4 years in college yeah, he doesn't have an elite ceiling when it comes to quarterbacking, but he knows how to play the position and make the decisions. Lance, Trey Lance stands around and says, "Well, at least I played more games than Anthony Richardson."
I still think it was a waste of a 4th-round pick for Dallas. A couple other pieces of news. Baker Mayfield was officially named quarterback 1 in Tampa Bay after I made jokes about them not having a quarterback on Monday. And Corey Davis has decided to retire from the NFL, kind of clarifying that Jets receiver depth chart. Dennis, how do you feel about those 2 tidbits?
So, I'm out on Baker. I think that Baker will start. He'll have a couple decent games. He'll some people will believe the comeback's under afoot. Then he'll shit the bed, and they'll put Kyle Trask in, and they'll do the same thing with Trask. Then they'll go ahead and sign somebody off the street. I still think they'll sign Carson Wentz, but they'll sign somebody and bring in, throw him back there. It's for all of his personality and moxie or whatnot, it almost seems like Baker's just likable Johnny Manziel. As far as Corey Davis goes, you know what? He's 30 years old now. He's had some really good games, some okay seasons. He's not going to surpass Garrett Wilson. I'm sure looking around and he sees Randall Cobb and Alan Lazard and their existing relationship with Rodgers and Hackett. And at some point you kind of go, I made some money. I got a family. Maybe it's time for me to just move on. I get it. Sometimes you just got to hang it up and call it a day. Your heart's not in it. I don't think it was a wasted pick, but he didn't develop like we thought he would coming out. He had an elite physical profile, and he was productive in college, albeit at a smaller school. But it just didn't develop in the NFL the way I think a lot of people expected. So yeah, I don't think it has any real effect on the Jets. He was going to be their. I thought he was going to be their wide receiver 3, but
I think Hardman's got that.
Yeah, Hardman will be the 4. I think Cobb's going to be the slot guy. He seems to fit best there. Hardman will be the gadget guy. Lazard will be the other outside wide receiver with Garrett Wilson.
Well, and I mean, it's clear Randall Cobb was making the team because I don't know if you've watched Hard Knocks or any of the Jets preseason, but he was one of the guys that wasn't even suited up and playing, which kind of tells you his spot is secure. I'm sure he'll be playing in this game 3, but he was one of the receivers that didn't even dress out for game 2. He was on the sideline with Rodgers. Well, today we are going to look at the top half of our running back redraft rankings draw. We'll be doing 25-1. Dennis, I'll let you kick it off. Why don't you give us your first 10, 25-16?
So I have James Conner at 25. And, looking at some rankings, Conner's higher in some. He's hard to rank, because he's the dude in Arizona. He's the running back there. He's big. He's going to get the work, but he has a tendency to get injured. And the team is going to be awful. Oh, speaking of news, how about Cleveland trading Josh Dobbs in the 7th to Arizona for a 5th-round pick?
Kyler is never playing this season. I don't care what people keep saying.
Yeah, and that clearly says, Colt McCoy is washed. I think that
and Clayton Tune
Dobbs will be the starter. Dobbs went into Tennessee and started on with a week's notice. I think Dobbs will be the starter by week 2, and maybe start most of the season until they decide to get Clayton Tune some playing time. That being said, Connor's the show there in the backfield. They've got Corey Clement. I think Ingram is injured. I believe they've got a couple other guys that aren't worth remembering. And the passing game is Marquise Brown. I think they want a quarterback that's going to be able to get the ball downfield. Colt McCoy has never been known for having a strong arm. Clayton Tune is a rookie that played in a little bit of a gimmicky offense. Needs some development. I like Connor, and I wouldn't be surprised if he finished as the RB12. But I also wouldn't be surprised if he missed 6 games. I wouldn't be surprised if he averaged 3 yards a carry because the team in the offense is terrible. I wouldn't be surprised if he had 1,200 yards because he's the only show in town. And I wouldn't be surprised if he had 700 yards because they're always behind and trying to throw the ball, and he just doesn't get enough opportunity. So he probably has the widest range of outcomes in any of the top 25. I've got Kamara at 24. I think with Jamal Williams in New Orleans, once Kamara gets back from his 3-game suspension, he's going to slide back into his early career role as the change of pace, the receiving back. Will he push for 80 receptions? I don't know about that. With Derek Carr, it's possible. I think Andy Dalton had a decent year last year, but Derek Carr, I don't think he's necessarily afraid to check it down. So I've got Kamara at 24. I have Alexander Madison at 23. I think Madison's going to be the lead back in Minnesota, but there's going to be a little more of a split than there had been with Dalvin Cook. He's not going to get Dalvin's workload over 17 games. At 22, I got Dameon Pierce. Much like James Conner, Pierce is the show in Houston. And as much as I love CJ Stroud, that offensive line has struggled. He's hasn't come along quite as fast. He's playing like a rookie, but he's going to get to play. He's going to get experience. And Dameon Pierce looked pretty good in all 3 phases of the game last year. I do think Devin Singletary, while not historically known as a pure receiving back in the Austin Eckler kind of archetype, he's an okay receiving back. He'll be a change of pace, a guy that gets every 3rd or 4th series, I think. But Pierce is going to be the lead back there. I've got James Cook at 21. Buffalo, I think, Cook is going to have kind of a Austin Eckler light season. I think he's going to make most of his points in the passing game, but he's going to get the opportunity to run the ball. Josh Allen, is their goal line back until Damian Harris shows us something different. But I think McDermott wants Allen to ease up on running the ball. I just think guys like that run the ball and are good at it, it's hard for them to give up that responsibility. So I've got Cook. It'll be on the back of his receiving game, though. At 20, I got Javonte Williams. He's a guy that I love this year. I think he's going to he'll start off a little slower coming back from injury, but he looks to be back. He's going to be playing in all 3 phases, though, Samaje Perine isn't just a handcuff. Perine's going to get some playing time too. And we've seen that with Sean Payton in the past, that he'll use 2 backs and use them a lot. So I got Javonte Williams at 20. J.K. Dobbins at 19. The only real question I have with Dobbins is, can he get enough passing work to elevate his game to an even higher level? He showed last year he was still a dynamic runner, even without the top-end speed that he came into the season with. Last year, he still had the exceptional vision, able to hit the hole quickly. He just couldn't kick it into that extra gear. Being another year past that surgery, I think some of that long speed will come back for Dobbins. So if he could get 35, 40, 45 passes to go along with his rushing game, Dobbins should have a nice ceiling. I've got Kenneth Walker at 18. I think he's the more explosive back in Seattle. He's going to get the opportunity first. Will he catch some passes? Yeah, probably he'll catch some. I think Charbonnet and DJ Dallas are probably a little better in the passing game than him. But with Jackson Smith and Jigba, Tyler Lockett, and DK Metcalf, I don't know how often they'll be throwing the ball to the backs anyways. I like Walker. He's if he can get past his tendency to want to bounce everything outside and take some of the holes that are there on the interior, and take some 7-yard carries instead of trying to bounce everything for 75 yards. I think Walker's going to have a real good year. Got Breece Hall at 17. I think early in the season, we're going to see a little more Dalvin Cook. But Breece Hall at this stage of his career versus Dalvin Cook, even coming off the knee injury, once he has confidence in it, I think he's going to be okay. He's super explosive. There'll be a little bit of, first year after the injury hesitancy, I think, with Breece Hall. But you'll get that with any running back coming off an injury. And then at 16, I've got Travis Etienne. I think he's still the guy in Jacksonville. He's not the pass receiver I think we some people, including me, thought he might be, but he's okay in the passing game. He's very explosive. He can take anything, any play. He could take it all the way. He's got great burst, good size. I think he's going to be the number one in Jacksonville. Bigsby will get some play, but I think this year it's going to be Travis Etienne. So that's my 25 through 16.
All right. Well, my 25, apparently I'm also suffering an ant infestation in here. What a wonderful day for me. At 25, I have Jerick McKinnon. He was running back 20 last year on the strength a lot of that passing game work. I think he will continue to play that role. I think he's a sneaky value this year. I have him up there in my top 25. At 24, I have DeAndre Swift. The rumors that emerged today, I don't know if you saw them, that they're trying to trade for Jonathan Taylor really dampens my enthusiasm. No backfield is as confounding as Philadelphia and possibly as depressing, but I liked the potential of Swift and his big playability going there when he went this offseason, so I still have him just inside my top 25. I have Kamara at 23, like you. I think the suspension takes a little bit of a bite out of it, but when he comes back, I think he'll be the better running back over Jamal Williams. At 22, I have Khalil Herbert. You talked about on Monday that you were excited for him and excited for a big year. I'm even more excited. I think we've seen flashes of his explosiveness. I think getting a bigger share of the workload. I'm excited to see what he can do. At 21, I have Ken Walker. I like Walker, but Charbonnet being there, you mentioned they have some passing game assets, so it's going to be interesting to see how that plays out. So I have them a little bit of a lower end running back too. At 20, I have Dalvin Cook. I mentioned on Monday that you and I are a little bit flipped on our take on Breece Hall and Dalvin Cook. You had Cook in the 30s. I had Breece Hall in the 30s. I have Dalvin Cook up at 20. You have Hall up at 17. So kind of have to see how that plays out a little bit as well. 19, I have Alexander Madison. I agree with you. I don't know if he's going to be explosive. Every time Dalvin was injured and missed time, we seemed to think that we were just going to see Alexander Madison pick up that full workload and was going to explode. And it never quite played out that way. And I think, they're also a good passing team. So it felt right for me to have him there. I have Travis Etienne at 18. I agree with you. I think he'll have a little bit more of a split with Tank Bigsby than what some people are thinking, but I think he'll still be the dominant back. At 17, I have Miles Sanders. I liked the move. He had a career year last year. I think he's going to a place in Carolina where he has a chance to be featured and to put up some really good numbers as well. And then at 16 for me, I have Aaron Jones. I like Jones. I think he's going to be the lead in Green Bay. I'm not as bullish on Green Bay's offense in general, but I still think Aaron Jones is going to be just fine. So I think we'll move on. And Dennis, why don't you give us your 15-6, and we'll save our top five.
So at 15, I've got Aaron Jones. I still think he's the top dog there in Green Bay. Um, Starting Jordan Love this year, could they run more? Could they feature Dylan more and Aaron Jones more on the ground? They could. Um, they've got a first year starting quarterback. Could Jordan Love step into that same kind of role that Aaron Rodgers did when he was after sitting behind Brett Favre? He could. They've got a young wide receiver core and tight end core. But I like Aaron Jones to still have a couple more high end wide receiver 2 seasons in him. He's an excellent pass catcher and has a nose for the goal line, good inside runner. We got Miles Sanders at 14. He had his career in Philadelphia was one that it's like Mike Williams' career for the Chargers. It's like 1 year it's lots of touchdowns, 1 year it's lots of receptions, 1 year it's lots of yards. But it's not. Last year he finally started to put it all together in Philadelphia, and I think he's going to get the opportunity to be the lead back in Carolina. Hopefully Bryce Young plays well enough to keep the offense in balance. DJ Chark's out with an injury already, so I think that bodes well for Jonathan Mingo. Thielen will be the reliable guy there. Laviska Shenault will get some play, but I just think Miles Sanders is head and shoulders above Chuba Hubbard, and I think he's going to be the unquestioned starter in Carolina. At 13, I've got Jahmyr Gibbs. I keep trying to put Gibbs higher, but I just, when I look at what they did last year with Swift and Jamal Williams, I just can't discount David Montgomery that much. I think Montgomery is going to be a factor, and he's also great in the 3-down game. But I feel like Gibbs is a guy that's he's going to get a lot of run in the passing game. Campbell comes in, he's got a little bit of that Sean Payton offense with the 2 back and 1 back doing a lot of receiving. I like Gibbs, super explosive. As long as they're not trying to pound him, behind the center and guard a lot, I think he's going to run the ball well also. At 12, I got Joe Mixon, my RB12, the last of the RB1s. I think Mixon just has a great opportunity. They've told us what they think about Joe Mixon. They said, we want to keep you, but we only are going to pay you this much. But if you'll take that money, we're not going to bring in anybody that's a legitimate threat to your workload. Yeah, Brown will get some run here and there. Chris Evans is going to get some passing game run. Travion Williams will still keep trying to work his way up. But I think they've decided to, Joe Mixon is their ride or die at running back. Got Ramondre Stevenson at 11. I don't think, as much as I love Zeke Elliott, I don't think he's a threat to Ramondre Stevenson's production. Stevenson was let's see where to go. Stevenson was the RB11 last year, and it wasn't because he scored a lot of touchdowns. He's a good running back. He's got good balance. He caught, I think, 69 passes last year, so he catches the ball well. Zeke is going to be a compliment to Ramondre Stevenson. We're not going to see Zeke getting, every third series to himself. Zeke is going to get the tough yards when they need the tough yards. But I like Ramondre Stevenson at 11. Got Josh Jacobs at 10. Still got my fingers crossed. He's coming back to work next Monday. Going to get himself in shape for the regular season. $10.1 million ain't nothing to sneeze at, Josh. Remember where you came from. That money will do a lot of good. That's my plea. And, my biggest concern with Josh is that Jimmy Garoppolo, Brian Hoyer, and Aiden O'Connell are the quarterback situation there, and Josh McDaniels is the head coach. That's my biggest concern about Josh Jacobs. But we've seen Jacobs handle a massive workload and be very productive. So I've got Jacobs at 10. 9, I got Najee Harris. Harris last year was, gosh, what was he? He was RB 10, 10 last year. No, that was my ranking. See, he's going off the board at RB 11. I've got him at RB 9. You know, I don't. So people are going all gaga over Jaylen Warren. And I got to tell you, Jaylen Warren is just a little bit less athletic, James Robinson. Yeah, I get it. He's got decent vision. He's not super fast. He's not any faster than Najee Harris. He's a good back, but Najee is the running back in Pittsburgh. Jaylen will get some opportunities, but Najee Harris is the guy you want to roster. Got Jonathan Taylor at 8. You know, we're going to talk a little bit later about somebody that I'm most nervous about. And, you know, JT may make that list. Derrick Henry at 7. Man, it's hard. Yeah, I think we just got to keep putting Henry in the top, 5, 6, 7, 8 until he's just not. And as of right now, there's no reason to not have him up there. He's going to get the ball. He's going to be the show. DeAndre Hopkins is going to help lighten the load in the box and open it up. And as long as Tannehill can stay healthy, I think Henry should have himself another good season. And then at 6, I got Tony Pollard. Much like Joe Mixon, Dallas has told us, you know, you're the guy. You know, Rico Dowdle and Malik Davis, they're the back. Deuce Vaughn, that's the backup crew. So they're saying to Tony Pollard, look, you're going to get the ball. You're going to run it. You're going to catch it. We'll spell you a little bit, but these other guys, they're backups. Make no mistake about it. Got Tony Pollard at number 6.
Yeah, you and I have the same group of players in our top 12, but in slightly a different order. But for me, going back to number 15, I have Javonte Williams. I'm very excited about him coming back. He seems healthy. They are getting the ball to him in the passing game. I think that's something that's going to be even more highlighted with their struggles at wide receiver health. 14, I have Jahmyr Gibbs. I'm like you. I want to put him higher. I like the potential. I like the explosiveness, but that's where I've got him. And that would be a pretty heck of a season right there to be right around running back 14. I have J.K. Dobbins at running back 13. I'm excited that this might be finally the year that we see him explode. They are, after all, Baltimore really wants to be a run-first team, and I think he's got some great potential to put up huge numbers. At 12, I have Najee Harris. I think he's going to continue to produce very well. May not catch as many passes as he did during his rookie season because I don't know if they're going to throw as much, but I think he'll have a stronger year running. Was running back 14 last year. I think he moves back up into running back 1 territory. I have Joe Mixon at 11. Not a lot of competition, has a pretty good role there in Cincinnati, an incredible offense. At 10, I have Ramondre Stevenson. He was running back 7 last year. You mentioned he caught 69 passes. I think he's going to have another big year. I like Zeke as a contributor, but I mean, last year Zeke was running back 22 in Dallas, and his running back mate, Tony Pollard, was running back 8. So you can still have a pretty good season from Zeke and have a running back that's in the top 10, especially when you have somebody that was as productive as Ramondre Stevenson, big part of the passing game. They still don't have a ton of passing weapons there. Number 9, I have Josh Jacobs. I have him, I'm like you. I'm hoping he comes back, and I'm hoping that he still looks good. He had a career year last year. I think my biggest question is actually the Las Vegas offense in general and the opportunities he gets. But you and I have the same 8-7-6. I have Jonathan Taylor at 8. Curious to see where he ends up, if he ends up going anywhere. I think they've put a clock supposedly on this trade talks of next Tuesday. Curious to see if they don't get anything done, if they just decide to keep him, what kind of workload he gets. There are a lot of questions around Jonathan Taylor, but he's got a great talent. 7, I have Derrick Henry. I think there's no questions about his talent. There's no questions about his role on that team. And at 6, I have Tony Pollard. He's the man in the backfield this year. He was running back 8 last year. I think he can do even better this year. I'm excited to see what he does. Dennis, I mentioned you and I have the same top 5, just a slightly different order. I have Saquon Barkley at 5 and Bijan Robinson at 4. And then I have Nick Chubb at 3. I think he's going to have a fantastic season, but that's where I have him. And then I had Austin Eckler at 2 and Christian McCaffrey at 1. You have the same 5 guys, but what is your order?
So I also have Barkley at 5. He's the rock in New York for the Giants. He's the one that's going to be consistent. I think he's going to catch the ball out of the backfield. He's a really good running back. He's going to get plenty of yards, plenty of opportunity. The way that wide receiver group is set up, we don't know what's going to happen. Like, I'm up to about 50 best ball drafts, and I've taken lots of different shots. The guy that I've taken the least in best ball drafts in that New York wide receiver core has been Jalen Hyatt. I just feel like as a rookie, what his skill set needs to develop. What he does well, but I just don't think he's going to get a ton of opportunity. But I've got several shares of Isaiah Hodgins, Paris Campbell, Darius Slayton. I'd love to draft Sterling Shepard. I just don't believe he can stay healthy, so I don't. But I've got Saquon Barkley at 5. I think that he's going to produce again this year. Got Bijan at 4. Yeah, I get it. Some people have him higher. Some people are ranking him at 1. For me, I think the biggest thing to keep Bijan from being the RB1 this year is the overall offense in Atlanta. I want to believe Desmond Ridder is going to get it done, but we keep seeing these highlights of Drake London and Kyle Pitts making these fantastic catches away from their body because Desmond Ridder can't get the ball to hit the bullseye. So, maybe once he gets under live fire, it'll tighten up a little bit. And so I think that they're just not ready to take a huge step. And so Bijan, well, he'll have a good year. He's going to be very productive. I've got him at number 4. I have McCaffrey at 3. And it's easy to, when you watch what they do in San Francisco and how well he fits that offense, if I had to pick one San Francisco 49er to be my guy this year, it would be Christian McCaffrey. I think that San Francisco offense is going to be McCaffrey, one other guy, and half of another one. And those other guys are going to be, Ayuk, Debo, and Kittle. And you're going to drive yourself nuts trying to figure out which one of those 3 guys is going to hit that week with McCaffrey and which one is going to be serviceable along with McCaffrey and the guy that hits, because one of them is going to shit the bed every week and you just don't know which one it's going to be. But McCaffrey, he's 28 years old. He's in a good situation. I think he'll be productive. RB3, it's nothing to sneeze at. And number 2, I got Austin Eckler. He has been trying to give away the rushing part of his job for 3 years now. And it seems like Joshua Kelly and Isaiah Spiller are finally stepping up to the task. That being said, Eckler's still going to catch a lot of passes. It wouldn't surprise me if the Chargers were the highest scoring offense in the NFL this year with all the weapons they have. But I do think that Eckler gives up some of the rushing game. And as he's getting a little older, I do think we start to see a little bit of a decline. And they just have so many other weapons in the passing game that it feels like some of these things where they may, have an 8-play drive where Eckler gets plenty of run, they're going to have a little bit more with Mike Williams and Quentin Johnston, some more 1, 2, 3-play drives than we've been used to. And that leaves me with Nick Chubb at number 1. I'm in on Nick Chubb this year. I get it. He's been a company man up in Cleveland his whole career. He doesn't bitch when, they put Kareem Hunt in every third series, or they decide they're going to pass the ball to somebody else, bring in another running back. Well, this year, Hunt is gone. Jerome Ford stepping up to number 2. I like Ford. I really do. But he's no Kareem Hunt. Kareem Hunt came into the league and was the RB1. He had some phenomenal seasons in Kansas City. Jerome Ford, I don't think presents that same type of opportunity. I think Nick Chubb is going to get the ball often. He's also going to catch the ball. His career high in receptions is 36. I think he's in for a 50-plus catch season this year. He's going to be on the field more in third downs. Wouldn't surprise me if he put up 1,800 yards rushing. If they get leads, even little ones, and they're trying to salt it away, at his core, Kevin Stefanski runs a conservative, rush-oriented offense. I get it. We paid $250 million for Deshaun Watson. But, man, when you got Nick Chubb, you let that dude run the ball. And I'm going to give the ball to Nick Chubb. I've got Nick Chubb as my RB1 this year.
Yeah, and it's not a bad pick because, he's been a high RB1 the last few years with competition now. As you mentioned, he does not have that competition. Dennis, I think we alluded to it earlier with Jonathan Taylor, but who's one player in your RB1 category that has you most nervous? I will say I'm with you on Jonathan Taylor because of the variety of outcomes.
So Taylor isn't like they've already. It's reported that they've turned down offers, at least one offer from Miami.
From Miami.
Now, if he landed in Miami, that would be phenomenal. Like, I get it. It's a narrow funnel to the fantasy assets with Hill and Waddle, but it's not. It'll be, he is built to run the ball in that offense, and he could be super dynamic. If he goes to Philadelphia, he'd be the lead back there. I don't think Philadelphia has the space to get him. Maybe, I don't know. It would sure throw a monkey wrench in a lot of backfields. But I in the end, I think he's going to be in Indianapolis, and he'll be in camp and he'll play. The other guy that makes me nervous is Josh Jacobs, just with the holdout. We see guys hold out, come in the week before, never quite get it going, soft tissue injuries, things like that. That does make me a little bit nervous.
Who is somebody in the low end running back 2 range, say, 25 to 19, who you think could make a leap?
I'm going to hang with my guy, James Conner. I just think that, I got him at RB 25, but if that offense shows any kind of competency, Connor's going to, he could catch 70 balls and rush for 1,100 yards. He may not get a lot of touchdowns because I just don't think the offense is going to score a lot of points this year. But he's a guy that I could see bumping up to inside the top 15, inside, almost maybe even top 12, just by sheer volume alone.
I'm going to go with Jerick McKinnon because he was RB20 last year, and he really only kind of had a strong role in the offense in the back half of the season. I know there's inherent risk there, but if he has that same kind of role throughout 17 games, I think he could end up as an RB1. Finally realizing all that potential people thought he had when he signed with the 49ers as a free agent. Who's somebody outside your top 25 who you think could vault up into the top 25?
I love Khalil Herbert this year, and I know I've only got him at RB 31 because as I, looking at the situation, there's the narrative that this coaching regime didn't draft him, but he's established himself as the one there. They've held him out of games. They're treating him like the starter. Is he going to get 75% of the touches? Probably not. But I think he's in line for 55% of the touches at the running back position, with Roschon and Foreman splitting the rest of them. I just think as Justin Fields grows, adding weapons to that passing game, letting that offensive line mature. We saw it with the screen pass a couple weeks ago in the preseason game. Herbert can do some things. He's explosive, and that's something that Travis Homer, Roshan Johnson, and Deontay Foreman don't bring to the table, is that explosiveness.
Travis Homer. I keep forgetting he even signed there. My person I'm going to go with is James Conner for a lot of the reasons that you have him up in your top 25. I think I mentioned on Monday, my biggest hesitation is I don't really believe in that Arizona offense. And I still don't believe in that Arizona offense, but somebody's got to get the ball and somebody's got to do the work. And he definitely, we've seen it in the past, him be able to get up. I think he's only his first year in Arizona. I'm pretty sure he was an RB1 because of the touchdowns. And I don't know if he gets that many touchdowns, but he's certainly capable of it. Well, that'll do it for us today, looking at running backs as you're going through this final weekend of the preseason. If you're feeling a little bored and looking for something to do, Dennis, what can the people do to fill those commercial breaks?
Well, they can go out and just send some lowball offers for Malik Willis in Tennessee. I've been coming around on him this training camp. He looks like it feels like a Brett Favre to Aaron Rodgers progression with Tannehill and Willis. He's playing decent now. He's still a running quarterback. He's got some development to continue doing, but he's taken a hold. He looks so much better than he did last year. And I just think Willis in Dynasty, if you can go get Willis and throw him on your bench and you get him for a late 3rd round pick, let it ride. Let's see how he develops. But if you can't do that, go to your favorite podcast platform, give us a subscribe, review, give us a rating, feel free to share it with your friends. If you don't believe in us, then definitely share. Tell your friends, these guys suck. Listen to them.
Who do you think has a better shot at having some productive fantasy relevance, Malik Willis or Trey Lance? The fact that we have to pause on this question shows
I'm
you
trying
how
to
far
decide if I want the cyanide or the anthrax. I mean, I'm going to say right now Willis, because he's only in year 2 versus Lance, who's in year 1. And I think Willis has a much better, not by a ton, because he played at Liberty, didn't have, only had a couple years of college versus Lance's 1. But I'm going to give the slight edge to Malik Willis right now.
Well, we just made a lot of people cry, but that's our role sometimes. Well, next week, preseason will be behind us. I'm sure on Monday we will recap a little bit of what happened in week 3 of the preseason, but we will also be turning our attention to wide receivers. We'll be covering our top 50 redraft wide receivers. We'll look at 50 to 26 on Monday. We'll see if there are any Broncos wide receivers healthy enough to be considered for the top 25. At this point in time, I'm speculative. Thank God the Rams don't have much of a secondary to break anyone else on Saturday night, but it's coming. Until then, hope you guys have a wonderful weekend. Go out there and get those Malik Willis shares.
Arrivederci.